Tabletop will start after the following messages.
When four strangers meet for the first time, they unknowingly begin to unravel tightly kept secrets about their worlds. This place sucks. This realm sucks.
I don't mean to interrupt, but maybe speak about portals a little quieter?
You know how some people aren't really into science and magic mixing together?
That's just a story. Portals haven't existed for hundreds of years.
Armed with little true knowledge, but unfathomable curiosity, these four strangers set out in search of answers and form an unlikely bond.
I do see you, and I'd like to think that I'll be there when you're ready to talk about it.
He kind of relaxes for the first time around the group.
You keep putting yourself in danger for others, but who puts themselves in danger for you?
Join Ivy, Varys, Alara, and Ziva as they dive headfirst into the unknown. Follow us at Rainbow Dice Club on your favorite streaming platform, and find us at Rainbow Dice Club wherever you get your podcasts. Do you trust me?
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tabletop. It's holiday season, and today we're talking about how to add more social quests into your games. We don't want to fight. We don't want to have combat during the holidays. We want to, figure out how to save an inn from going under or something. So today we're going to talk about how we go about that in our games, but I can't do it alone. So who's at the table with me today?
It's me, Franco.
I'm
Sorry.
Credit
This time?
Is this the thing? You're just doing a new name every time?
Credit D, last name Klein.
Credit decline.
Credit decline.
I get it.
Okay.
So what happened to Dinero and Cassius D?
I'm soft launching a new brand.
Okay.
And that is now Credit Decline.
Is it because did something happen financially to the last two identities that you've been taking on?
It turns out Cassius is actually a name.
Okay.
In a real
Wait, you didn't know that?
Are you joking?
A real fun thing.
Is this a joke? Never seen Daniel so starry-eyed.
Yeah. And D Money is still my favorite, but it sounds weird.
I'm pretty sure someone else has been called D Money in the past.
D-Money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean I don't care if anyone else has been called Cassius. I was just like, that's an actual name. I'm not trying to just change my name to Cassius.
But so was De Niro.
All right, let's move on.
De Niro, not De Niro.
Yeah, but that was,
Sure.
De Niro, but yeah.
De Niro.
What about you over there?
I guess my name's Shade.
Do you want me to soft launch any brand for you?
No,
I'll
I
get some
had
ideas
a
together.
goof that I was gonna do, but you threw me for such a loop.
All right, today we're talking about social quests. What's a social quest to you all?
I don't know. I was really confused by the topic, so I'll just sit this one out.
So he is not going on the social quest.
He's not helping. But yeah, I guess a social quest is just like, what? If you remember Into the Woods,
Yeah.
and the lady,
The play? Okay.
And the lady needed a golden shoe to give to a cow to get the milk. I would say that's a social quest because you're not trying to combat. You're not trying to you're just trying to solve one person's small problem that's very important to them. So a social quest would just be
like,
I don't know. It sounds like
I
a
would...
fetch quest that could lead to combat at some point.
This is the thing, is that for me, a social quest does not involve combat. And if it does, it's like a very small part of the quest. Like
sometimes you punch a guy to get through a conversation.
Sure.
We've all been there.
Yeah. I think that a social quest is sort of like if D&D is split into combat and non-combat, you are relying 90% on the non-combat skills that you are given as a character to get through this quest, essentially. At least for my opinion. What about you guys?
I mean, the word quest, I think, is maybe what threw you off, Franco, would be my guess.
Yeah,
but
this doesn't make any fucking sense.
It's just when we talk about a session, this session is combat heavy. that's not obviously a social encounter. Encounter is maybe the word that
Sure.
So it's any time. So a great example of this is in our Monster of the Week game, for just to use that. There obviously Monster of the Week's a game where you don't really want to fight.
Yeah, and there are built-in mechanics for socializing. I forgot we didn't have to talk about D&D. Thank God.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm way off my shoulders. Oh, we don't have to talk about 5e anymore. No, we just recorded the 5e episode, and I'm just like, 5e, fuck me. I will say there was a social quest adventure or whatever that I did for the Argot campaign that I ran, which is a homebrew setting. I know it's 5e,
I don't want to hear about it.
Oh, fuck it. It's basically like it was a courtroom battle.
Yeah,
that you guys did a courtroom thing.
Yeah.
And I really wish I had built a mechanic for it. And that was like
session 5 of
my first campaign ever. And but now I know that there is a great mechanic that you can use. You can just use rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, but or also like if you want to make like a little module or whatever out of that, that'd be so fun. Like
Ace Attorney.
Like every time you do an objection, you have to roll like some sort of thing. But it gets harder the more objections you do because then the judge is like, "Shut the fuck up."
He doesn't object too much. Yeah.
And like you could make a bunch of like this is my favorite part about social encounters is like how do you take the minutia of life and turn
into a game?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, so I got this from I think it's a Block Dodge Parry, which is a supplement for Cairn, and it is it's basically like a supplementary rule set, and it uses this rock paper scissor mechanic to you set a certain HP for your composure is what it's called. So that could be like your wisdom or something in games like that have wisdom. I don't know what the fuck they are. In Block Dodge Parry, it's a willpower. Yeah. And you just set an HP called composure equal to your willpower, and then you're just trading jabs back and forth. If your rock beats their scissors, whatever it is, like your attack versus their defend or whatever. That's not how it works. But anyway, like if you do it that way, then, you roll a certain die and they roll a certain die, and it sort of represents like you're arguing this point and they're arguing this point back or whatever. Yeah. And then you just go back and forth until one of you loses your composure and you lose the case. Yeah. And then that's just a gamified way of doing a courtroom battle or any social battle, really. Yeah.
Also, when we played Thirsty Sword Lesbians, just the whole like pulling strings and like being able to like I have this influence and that
strings
influence.
Is so good.
And the they're angry or frightened or like those other emotional things like you can put on someone. I love that kind of like is a good way to like do social encounters because we did like a whole ballroom networking game where you're like I need more strings than my opponent can get so I can get votes for the pageant. And I was like that was a lot of fun for me to run.
Yeah, I think that sort of stuff is awesome. Like I know that the mechanic didn't quite work in the way I ran it, and I think that's because I was trying to make the system do something it wasn't meant to do. But the
you're talking about 5e?
I'm talking about Urban Shadows. Okay. So Urban Shadows has a really cool thing about debts, and I also really love that of like because if someone's
declined,
but if like someone owes you a favor because you did something for them, and then you go up to talk to them, and you're like, I really need you to tell me the name of the person that gave you that locket, and they're like, no, man. And you're like, I did you a solid, and then there was like a whole mechanic like based on like how you basically can like use that as power over them in some ways to say. Like I'm using my bond, like I'm cashing in my favor and saying you kind of have to tell me right now, and like that kind of stuff is really cool to me. I really love that idea of like you're like adding resources to the social and adding ways to like trade and barter. It's very cool. Like I love diplomacy.
I know these are like the exact same thing, but we were playing like one rule system where it's like here's how you know each other. And then we were playing that rule system like here's how your debts to people are, and I hated the debts system, even though it kind of
totally. I know you did, and like I think that may have been on me.
You were very vocal
because it was like it let other people determine that I had like done something, or like they're like, oh, you. God, what was like? He saw me do something. I was like,
so that's 10 Candles.
No. That was
Urban Shadows.
It was another system.
There was
both of those issues I've had have been Sean with putting stuff onto my character. Like, I don't know if I would have done that.
Well, I think the interesting thing with like games
Sean, I love you. Bye.
The interesting thing with a game like that is that it helps the whole table build each character together. Yeah. And so you're like kind of like, you know, in Monster of the Week, the game that we played for Lakewood, you know, I saw Jackie's character eat a kid or something like that because she was like an evil ghost or whatever. Yeah. I forgot what it was. It was something like that. She ate a child. I don't know. I don't think it was that, but I think it was something like that.
Pretty close.
It's pretty monstrous. I saw her do something monstrous.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the thing is, like, I don't know how it worked in that game, but I feel like I remember in Monster of the Week, it was kind of like, it was like this person saw you at your worst. Yeah. And not like you saw this person doing this.
Yeah, and it was sort of a conversation between the two. I think that the thing, and again, why I think it was
a really
my
nuanced
fault.
change.
Yeah, I think that the reason why it was my fault with the debts thing, because one, it was sort of like the game was like, take 2 debts and why did you get those debts kind of thing. And it made a little people be able to place some stuff on you. But I should have just as a GM been like, okay, decide how that worked instead of like just decide, because that became a little bit like less consensual in a way. Whereas in Candle Cove recently, you and Steven built your characters and collaborated in the building of them. And that had great effects. Like you guys had a really solid relationship from the beginning and you had like a good way all the way through. So I think that socially it's like that is a huge thing of like, are we doing this together and agreeing upon it? Or is it just like you saw me do something that I don't remember doing?
I remember one of the negative things that I saw for Steven's character was like, I've seen him at his worst when he's like down in the dumps because he hasn't solved a case or something like that.
Yeah, and he was like Sherlock Holmes of like, he becomes completely, you know, aimless or something.
So it was like kind of we decided together what that was or whatever.
And he was like, fuck yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Like the consensual part is great when you're throwing on like negative qualifiers onto each other. I think that's very fun.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Daniel. I didn't mean to do that.
I forgive you.
Thank you. But yeah, so when we start doing about like how we're building these sort of things, what goes into as a GM, you're thinking, okay, I have my table of people. I want to do something that's really testing them outside. I want to like add their creativity into something. I want to have their social skills be tested. I want to do something that's not fighting or combat. Where do you start with building something like that?
I guess I would want to say is what is the gain or what is the risk of loss? Because you go out like what are they trying to do? Because you could do a social encounter and be like, okay, it's an adventuring party. They're coming to a city. They've never been there before. The social game is you have to talk your way into like the guard. Yeah. The guard can only let so many people into the city in a day or what have you. I don't know how city gates works back. You research is needed, but you
cite your sources.
Cite sources. So you would have to like, okay, so what they want is to get into the city. Yeah. What they risk is being stuck outside at night. Yeah. And those are not live or die stakes, but obviously the chance for encounter for another part of the game goes up if they're outside of the city, or if they need to talk to someone and they have to wait and they have to go a different way. So this is the easy way, winning, and then it's the yes, but if they fail. So you always, I guess if I'm doing a social encounter, it's like, what's my yes, but, and then I try not to have a no or an end fail, because if you're doing this, you don't ever want to stop the game by failing an adventure. Sure. And so, I mean, even though sometimes, like if I needed a favor from you, Nick, and I came up and said, hey, you fucking bastard, can I borrow your cupcake recipe? I mean, I've ended that quest line because there's no way. Yeah. So you'd want to avoid things. You fucking idiot.
And cupcake cuck.
Yeah, unless I'm like a masochist and I'm like, yes, you can.
Yeah. But again, you got the right strategy with it.
Exactly.
You played the right. You played scissors.
You played the right card. So yeah, what's the gain? What's the risk? And then kind of like, who are you talking to? Who's going to be involved? Who can you lean on for help? Do you have friends or allies? I mean, you really have to like do a large sort of like networking flow chart, I think, if you want to do a good social encounter. For me, I also just want to throw this idea out there while I'm on my train of thought. Yeah. these social encounters are also a great way to do like a first adventure to let the party do these things with each other as a way of getting to know without having to get into like combat or something. Just like, oh, it's a social quest. You're all talk to each other.
Yeah, maybe.
I really like also the idea of like a task that is non-combat in nature and requires more skill checks than anything else, but that the use of RP and social skills can either worsen or make easier the task.
DC or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
There's another sort of... Sorry, I just keep doing this. I don't know why. I just keep bringing up like different mechanics from other systems and shit like that. I forget who the blog writer was, and I'm very sorry about that. But there is this idea, like advantage and disadvantage.
Yeah.
I've heard of those.
Yeah. There's this idea that like don't think about it that way, like you're rolling 2 dice or whatever. It's like if you have like certain tools, capabilities, an argument that you have like that is persuasive or something like that, just roll the die as you would normally against the DC.
Yeah.
And based on what you do, the outcome, based on what you did to mitigate any of these things, like your outcome is either enhanced or subdued or something. Like if you roll, like say if you would have given disadvantage to this, your success is just smaller.
Yeah.
And your failure is much greater. And if you, made a great argument and you brought the cupcake recipe with you and you're like, hey, I'm going to bribe you with this cupcake recipe, the impact is higher. If you succeed, it's higher. And if you fail, it's like not that bad of a fail. Like maybe you need to give them something else or whatever. Like in Monster of the Week, the manipulate somebody roll is like, if on the mixed success is great.
I really
give
love
them an
that,
assurance or they'll say no.
Yeah, they need something from you.
They need something from you right away.
Yeah, and usually it's like, there's a monster, prove it. And then they're like, here's the tooth. And they're like, oh, shit.
Here's a video recording. Man, we got so much evidence on that monster.
That also gets into a point that I think is important for social encounters, and that, it's not always... like a persuasion check in 5e is just the same thing as an athletics check. Don't expect me to be able to fucking go, run 1,000,000 miles. I can run a little bit in real life. But my character, when I rolled that 20, great, they did it.
Yeah.
Same
They're
thing
not
with
even
persuasion
huffing
check.
and puffing.
Don't leave it up to your players to say the exact right words. So sometimes you just need to, both as a player and as a GM, say, hey, this is kind of what's happening in this interaction. And I think that Monster of the Weeks, they need an assurance, is something where you could, as a GM, have the, go into the character voice of like, well, yeah, I guess I could do that, but I'm going to need you to do a little something for me. And then, like act that all out.
Man, I love Scruffy.
That's a very good voice.
And, you could act that all out, or you could just say, your character knows, like based on this interaction, that
you just get a feeling.
You got a feeling that you're gonna have to probably give them something, assure them in some way beyond just your words.
I think that's like both the hardest thing for
so
GMs
hard.
doing social quests.
I think Monster of the Week is such a hard game to run.
Yeah. But like the thing that I really love to do is for characters that maybe that this person that at your table is not somebody who's super comfortable with role playing yet, or just like they're not charismatic. They are your friend and they're just not like the person who's able to talk their way into a castle in real life. So you just say like I roll this for me at the top, like you said, Shade, and essentially then say like, you start talking to them, but you see the guard's eyes squint a little, and you think that this is what they will need.
Yeah.
And then it just allows them to be free of that a little
There's
bit.
There's a reason that in video games, the protagonist is often silent in a lot of these. In these games where you create your own character, you're a silent protagonist. There may be words written on the screen, but, it's because so that you can put yourself in there and be like, I wouldn't say that. And also because frankly, sometimes no offense, but like the character that's written is not as charismatic as the writer or the actor thinks they are.
Well, not just that, but I was going to say, what do you do when you have a player that doesn't like wouldn't be able to socialize in that same way, like wouldn't have like the right charisma or know what to say in the moment in real life.
Yeah.
Like, but their character maybe would. Like, is that just like
that's the thing? That's where you got to go back to the roles. Like, what are you trying to do? Like, so you're like, I want to talk this guard into letting me do this thing.
Yeah.
All right, roll for it. That's why you're. Yeah. It's the same thing with saying, I want to reduce this monster to 0 hit points. All right, roll your attacks.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. As like, what is the goal that you want out of this social encounter? So don't think about like what are you trying to make your player say? Yeah, but just like if they're
a lot of DMs would be like, oh, you want to try to get past the guard? Well, tell me what you would say.
Well, sweet talk me.
And then the players have to come up with something. It's like, no, the guard doesn't like that. You didn't say the right words. And it's like, but my character is more charismatic and intuitive. Yeah. My character would be able to read more signs and know what to say. Correct. And I think a big pitfall with running these encounters is the DM relies on people's ability to role play, and role playing should be a fun part of the game, but not like a core mechanic of success or failure.
I want to dive into this a little bit more right after these messages.
Do you like nerdy stuff? Of course you do. Want to see someone make that stuff, but smaller? Sculpting Minis, tabletop terrain, props, puppets, and tutorials, a crafting channel for all things nerdy. Join me over on YouTube at Niche Crafts, where I make stuff about stuff.
Right before the break, we were talking about what the difference between having a mismatched level of social capability in a player and a character, and how as a GM you want to handle that. And as we jump back into this conversation, I actually want to throw it over to you, Shade, because I still remember this when we played
Light him up
earlier in the
burn him to the ground.
Fucking up. When we played in the earlier Waterdeep campaign, and we had just like chaos happening, and you basically had an interrogation session where you would have one of us split from the group and go and talk to you, which I still think of as like one of my favorite like social like social times. That was like very fun because all of the rest of us were sitting outside the like interrogation room being really like, what the fuck are they saying? And they're like, what should our stories be?
The interrogation room had like glass over the door or whatever, and like we could see into it because we were like playing in an office building.
Yeah. It was really funny. So Shay, I want to kind of talk about your thoughts on that, and like how you brought that to being.
Oh boy. So first and foremost, I think that's a great example of sometimes when you're doing the social encounters, we were just saying like you just need to sometimes let it be the roles, but other times you just need to make believe. Like it's fun to sit down and legitimately just, I don't know, what's the right word? Go into a fugue state, maybe?
I don't think that's the right word. But okay.
But let's just like completely just
precog.
Yeah, just like forget that you're talking to your friend. Look at them as
dirt on the bottom of your ship.
As a sexy giant.
Yeah, look at them as the sexy giant that they're supposed to be in this moment.
Look at your friend's ears in this moment. Like, so eye contact is not going to give you what you want.
And I think kind of related to this though, and Daniel, you mentioned
light me up.
No. You mentioned that we were talking about you just want to have the results as the goal, which I think is correct. Yeah. Sometimes when you're playing your Valen character, for example, who is always on the other side of the law.
Oh God, light him up.
I will go into that fugue state where I'm
Should we leave?
Well, no, but the cop is thinking this way, and you're fantastic at this, leaning into your character and just being like, no, this is what my character would say.
I think Danny's just being himself, to be honest. I think Valen is just the Danny he's ever been. It's just the most Danny.
It is level 20 Daniel.
Yeah. I mean, for the listeners, it is basically, Danny is just being completely contrarian.
Yeah.
Contrarian.
He's not being contrarian.
He's not being
He has a sense of values.
No, he's being obstinate.
Yes, thank you. That's the correct word.
He's not. He has a sense of values that are being threatened by this strange force he doesn't understand.
Yeah. Obstinately.
Yeah, which I love about that character. I really do, and I'm always because
we're always like, are we having fun?
Yeah, I will walk away from those sessions sometimes, and I'm like, I hope he wasn't I hope he didn't walk away feeling too frustrated because, like, I realize I come back into myself in that moment. I'm like, oh shit, no.
They just scream at each other.
Because I'm totally more on his side, except for the fact that he's a serial killer.
I'm not a serial killer.
I mean, you've been killing people in a series.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not because I needed to or felt compelled to.
But you did it.
Wait, so you're not compelled to kill criminals?
So let's not package this too much.
Dexter was still a serial killer.
Yeah. So anyway,
but Dexter was a serial killer because he had the compulsion to kill. He directed it towards criminals.
Actually, that show was stupid.
Yeah,
I'm killing criminals to get them out of the pool of
justify
people.
murder however you want, pal.
So anyway,
I believe in restorative justice.
I tried to teach it.
To be fair, our last session, you made me go back to before I was having those conversations.
But no,
Gotcha.
and that's kind of what brought it up because there was an end there where it was just like, what do you want to achieve, dude? And we kind of found a way to it.
Yeah.
And and we just kind of sidestepped the.
I don't think I had a goal.
No,
I think I was just there.
Yeah, but we kind of eventually got there where it was just like, okay, what do you want to achieve? Here's how we're going to do this. And we didn't really focus on what were the specific words. You just did something, and the cop went, huh, and then you flew away, and that was great for me.
OP wings.
OP wings.
But like stepping into the character and just, I think that there is a value to that.
Yeah.
Of just for the social elements, just sometimes removing yourself and being careful not to, lean too much into it where it's like, oh no,
now we're just shouting at each other.
Now I am just being a fascist pig of a cop, like.
Well, but this is the thing is like,
and he's being a fascist vigilante.
Well, this is the thing is like.
I'm a liberal vigilante. Thank you very much.
He's pretty liberal with those killings. That's right.
That's true. He's lawful evil.
He is actually lawful evil.
Yeah, that's literally fascism.
So when I think about this stuff too, one of the things that I have experienced when running this sort of encounter as well is sort of like in acting school, they do a lot to try to strip this out of you, but everyone has a sort of like just like instinctual reaction of like, I don't know, don't look at me kind of thing. And I feel like when you're a GM, you are in a position where you're kind of forcing, like you're forced to be in a position where you are going to be in the majority of the social interactions because you're going to be all of the other characters.
Sometimes you'll be in the social interaction with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like,
avoid those if you can.
Yeah. It's like two goblins talking to each other. Like, oh, taxes.
That's actually another great moment where it's to zoom out and be like, they are discussing this.
Yeah, well, this is what I was going to say.
I was going to say, my favorite moment of being stuck in a DMing circle is I had two NPCs.
The DMing circle.
The fisher, the fisherman and his his wife, and they were having a conversation, and they had conflicting goals in the conversation with the party, and so I kept having to go back and forth and having them like argue with each other to see who would get to say the thing or if they would get stopped.
And play rock, paper, scissors with yourself.
It's like that old like Etten lore where like one is like
the heads.
Yeah, like the different heads have different personalities or whatever. But like my
or the
point
Skull
here,
Lord.
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite.
One of my things here is like, how as a GM, if you are not comfortable doing that sort of thing, but you still want to run social encounters, you want to have that sort of thing at your table, how would you suggest like a GM that's not super comfortable doing that gets involved?
I don't see how that person becomes a GM. Is where I'm at my first hurdle to answer your question.
Just become really full of yourself and like hearing yourself talk.
Yeah,
and that's
start a
why
podcast.
A little bit of narcissism.
That's why we're all on here.
Yeah.
Just become a full-on narcissist.
Yeah,
it's great.
You're great.
I'm great.
Yeah,
I'm great.
So no, I would say if you as a GM are, because honestly, even if you are comfortable with like acting and improv and things like that, there are going to be those moments where, boy howdy, you're going to come up against something you're like, oh, I don't really want to say this because it just you're playing a villain and they're like, haha, I'm going to murder all of the babies. And that just feels bad to you. Or
that's okay.
I mean,
say that.
Babies are real people.
Okay. I was softballing it here, guys. I don't in this moment want to say something.
What would you really be just
exactly.
uncomfortable saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
lines and veils are important.
But
there's the villain would do that.
There are gonna be those.
But your softball was to kill babies? How far would you go?
Because that's so comically evil that
that's mustache twirling.
Yeah, that's mustache twirling. I don't want to say something that's like truly vile and evil that a villain might say. Like
he's baiting you. You don't have to like go down.
No, you get it.
Yeah.
You get it. We're just messing with you.
No, I know. See, yeah. Anyway, you're gonna run into this paralysis that I just ran into, where you just keep talking and about anything else. And you're going to also have other moments, like maybe a romantic moment where you're like, oh, I don't know how much I want to. So that's where you really should just, maybe take a step back from the character. And again, you can sidestep this and just say, they fuck. They do something, like describe them. This is not the I, this is the they in that moment. But other times, I think for the shy GM, you just need to kind of remember that you're all here just having fun and like be silly.
Yeah.
Be silly.
And I guess I would to give actual advice
because that wasn't. You're right.
Wow, fucking tear him down.
No,
burn him.
The last thing, I wasn't lighting shade up.
We're kidding.
I had gone backwards to the thing that I had said first, which wasn't actual advice. So I'm only talking about me. Yes. I don't acknowledge others.
You, De Niro. Yes.
Me. No. Credit decline.
Yeah.
God, this is such a complicated bit. If you all refuse to remember the cascade of names,
it's going to be even more complicated because I think the 2 episodes where you tried different names both had microphone issues and probably will not be released.
And they're going to be out of order.
It's going to be the oddest bit.
What you were saying?
I guess my actual advice to a shy DM would be you would definitely need to practice, like one-on-one. Do it with smaller groups.
Practice it in a mirror.
Yes, do that in a mirror for sure.
Yeah.
You can also a way that I started because I'm a professional actor paid to pretend to be other people.
Sure.
And I started my D&D career by being like, Bill Stablums does this and everything.
The they versus the I.
Yeah, and so you can do that as a DM as well and say, like, the shopkeeper looks at you quizzically.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you have to be like, what brings you into my shop? Like, I don't know.
Because I myself, I don't really feel comfortable doing voices. I don't feel like it's a skill that I have.
Sure.
So a lot of my interactions are the narrative description of the NPC.
I unfortunately always go to the same voice.
Yeah. Which is Meowth, right?
Yeah, that's right. Meowth. Yeah. Hey, I'm a wise guy here. I feel like I can do other voices too, and it's very frustrating. It's like, no, I like doing voices, but for some reason I always just go back to this voice.
But along with trying it with other people, like, someone that you're very comfortable with, whether it's a close family member, your significant other, or a very good friend,
or a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
I know that other people have experienced this. I'm sure they have. Actually, I think Matt Mercer's talked about this, where sometimes you'll just kind of be thinking about the game and you'll kind of like mumble some words or try out a voice. Jackie has said in the other room, like, what the fuck was that? As I just kind of like, I'm just kind of sitting there writing or I'm just playing another video game or something like that and just kind of hanging out. And then I'm like trying on a hag voice all of a sudden.
I'm Geralt.
and you're like, damn you, Dutch.
I get stuck in that same thing because I listen to my headphones a lot and I don't listen to music with lyrics a lot of the time. I listen to just like
non-lyric
synth
orchestral
music, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I will be like in my headspace, and I have this habit a lot of times of my thoughts come at me in scenes. So if I'm trying to think of a problem,
dude, I do this all
It's me
the time.
having a conversation with someone that I know and going back and forth.
It made being on the tee in public very strange.
Because this is what I do. When I will start. Because I have my ears blocked, and I will just start having my side of the conversation out loud.
I do it with facial things where I won't be talking about.
Okay,
like,
Now that you're saying it this way, I have done this very, very rarely, but I have done this before.
Yeah.
The facial thing is kind of what's
because for me it's like
memory.
I'm like you were saying, Daniel, like I'm in like a fake conversation or whatever, and I'm sort of like. And I'm like kind of having the little thing.
I'm mad at
and
my
then I like
head
look up and a woman's looking at me like, is this guy about to like freak out?
Are you kind of like,
exactly. And and I guess this is the point of this comment is it's okay to do that. Like, yeah, it's totally fine.
None of this. That's and then when I was saying be silly earlier, seriously, don't take yourself so seriously. Life is short. It doesn't matter.
I've been working with this for myself, and God, it's gonna sound like it's not real advice, but embarrassment is a choice.
It is,
and just choose not to be
Daniel,
embarrassed.
You have just stumbled into what 4 years of acting collegiate like training is designed to do. Of just be like, don't be embarrassed on stage. Don't be embarrassed on stage.
Yeah.
Just do what you're supposed to do and like feel that. Don't feel embarrassed because that's you.
Yeah, because one of the things like me being shy all the time is like, people are gonna think. I was like, no, if you want to do something, do it and don't be embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
Don't just. If you feel like you're gonna be embarrassed, don't do it. If you want to do it, then don't be embarrassed by it.
And I'll take that to if you feel like you're going to be embarrassed about it, ask yourself why.
Yeah.
Why am I embarrassed? Because when
if you're playing with strangers, I understand.
Right.
But if you're a new DM, play with your friends.
Actually, yeah. Also,
don't set yourself up for failure that way.
Yeah. Well, but like if you're playing with strangers, you're never gonna see these fucking people again.
Yeah. That's also a great point.
And that might be something. I mean, because like you have done some acting, but not to the professional level, just back in college. But I also have done a fair amount of like customer-based things in my life,
which
customer
is acting.
Voice,
it's acting, and
if you work a retail job, you can do a social encounter in D&D.
Yes, you sure can.
Yeah, definitely.
If you have not been fired from a retail job,
even if you have been, you have the skills to be like an obstinate clerk.
To be an obstinate clerk,
you can be an obstinate.
Hi, I'm obstinate clerk.
But another thing I want to say, just as like general advice from my improv background, is that if you're in social encounters, there is a trap that happens to newer improvisers and also like pretty high level improvisers, which is the fight. If you start becoming like in a scene, you have competing desires and you start essentially fighting with a player, there is about a rule I use is that you can fight for 3 sentences, like 3 responses essentially. Beyond that, you are retreading ground. There is no way for this to progress. So either as a
just
DM,
like fights in real life.
Exactly.
I was going to say that's actually fairly good for real life.
And you say, as a DM, you say, okay, this character is not going to be swayed by this person. I'm going to tell the player that. And I'm just going to say, this person's not going to budge. You know, maybe you think at this point that like this is not the way to go about it. Or you can say, if you want to still solve it through sort of like a role-playing aspect, you have to change your tactic as the NPC to try to get out of the
scissors.
fight. Exactly. Like, like instead of attack, maybe it turns into, okay, this is not working. And then the person's like, fuck, listen, I am just really hungry. I haven't had lunch, and I think that's affecting this conversation. And you do something else and like try to restart this thing.
I want to throw a good example out there that I heard this past week while we were talking about sales pitching at work. And it's like there was a kid. It's the whole skit. So this kid, and he goes up to his father, and he goes, "Dad, I would like some ice cream." And the dad goes, "No, you haven't had dinner yet." And then the kid comes back and goes, "So I asked for what I wanted and I didn't get it." Sometimes you got to know your customer. And Dad's big thing is quality time. And so he turns around and he goes back in there and he goes, "Dad, I didn't get a chance to talk to you a lot these past couple of days. How about we have a bowl of ice cream, sit down and just really get into like what we've been up to?"
Yeah.
And the dad goes, "Yeah, I would love to do that." And that's what you got to think. If your first thing doesn't work, how can you still do that? You got to change your pitch around. And I think you can do that in these social games. We're like, okay, you want to get to the city walls? They say no. All right, what else can you do? Now you're trying to bring something into the city. You have information and you can bluff your way.
You've got to bring social engineering to your social encounters.
That's right.
Do we have any like last bits of advice or anything for folks who are trying to design social encounters? One thing like for me is yes, have these social interactions and like pepper them throughout, but also like think of your group and what they like to do or what skills that they like to do, or if they like thinking outside the box or all that kind of thing, and try to design ways for people to do that as well in their social encounters. I think that is always really, really fun to, you know, always have a mix of what people are doing within a single scene. But what about you guys? What else do you think in your kind of last thoughts for social encounters?
I would say if you have NPCs that you know you're going to be using or just on the fly, I like to make 3-word personality maps.
Oh, those are really good. Yeah.
For NPCs, which is like, if you were going to have a guard, that guard could be loyal, cowardly, and
hungry.
I'm hungry, maybe.
Yeah, sure. And do you have a random table for that?
You can make a random table for that.
Yeah.
And
do you have one so I can just use it?
I don't have one, but I've been saying this, I was like, yeah, if I had that, that would be so much easier to do this for.
Yeah.
And that way, you go, okay, what do you need to do to get by this? Oh, now you know what this word map is, and now you have a good sense of what this character could be surface level.
That honestly, I love doing that, and I Monster of the Week in the guide of how to build encounters encourages you to do that. Of like, what kind of NPC do you want this to be? Because there are different roles for the NPCs within the game, and then what is a personality trait and what's another thing about them, which has led to very funny encounters, like that shirt salesman who absolutely hated you, and in the end it just like ended with like you having to buy these shirts, but also them almost calling the cops on you or whatever. It can lead to some really fun shit. It's like good. What about you, Franco and Shade? Do you have any last thoughts on social encounters?
No, use rock, paper, scissors.
Isn't that how you proposed?
No.
Oh, okay. I just thought that's how you came to every social encounter.
Rocked your scissors.
Franco's reaction to every bit is to just say no to it.
Yeah.
What about you, Shane?
You know, I think that as far as last advice, just again, be silly.
Yeah. Everyone loves a silly character.
Yeah. Honestly, the more you lean into the absurdities of a character, the better. Kind of to your point of like the map. I think also having like a catchphrase for characters. I don't really implement this much, but it's
like
something
Jersey Mike's.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I think about a lot, and I always mean to. And if I planned better, I would. But if you've got the time to plan, you know, create a little catch. Like I guess
I have a catchphrase for myself. It's no thought, all action, and that's how
Kurosawa actually does this in his movies. If you look at like Seven Samurai and all of those, each of the main characters has a physical tick that they repeat throughout the movie, so that they're immediately identifiable, and also to show their mental state, essentially, which is really interesting.
I think that things like that. Shorthand is amazing.
Yeah.
When you know, it kind of removes the complexity sometimes, but that's okay. You're here for like 4 hours to play a game. You can remove some complexity here.
Yeah, and I mean the shorthand is for you because if you RP them, then they're going to be more fleshed out in the pod. In the moment.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks again for listening to another episode of Tabletopped. If you like Tabletopped, well, then we would love to have you support the show. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram or Facebook. You can also subscribe to our Patreon. We have a lot of cool stuff over there. It's patreon.com/tabletopped. And also, we would love to hear from you about the show. You can always go to our website, tabletoppod.com, where you can use the contact form to send us questions or other things that we will answer on the show. All right, everyone. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Tabletopped. Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.